This is starting to get annoying now with this stupid camera.
And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream on Legal Bites. Very happy to have you guys here, and very happy to once again have Kurt from Uncivil Law and Nate the lawyer, on our channel. We've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today. So how have you guys been? Kurt, have you been?
I've been busy, but good.
Good. Busy can be good.
Not as much time to do for stuff on my channel
good.
right now, so not as many videos out right now, which is a little annoying, but, you know, we'll return to normal service eventually.
Well, you're changing, aren't you? You're changing up a little bit, aren't you, Kurt? Because I remember you said you were going to change some of the...
switch up format a little bit. I'm going to try to make stuff a little bit shorter, so try to keep stuff under 15 minutes.
Nice.
So,
nice. Make it shareable, right?
Yeah. It's like, how do I condense all this complex legal theory into 15 minutes? Well, okay, that's going to be fun.
That's the hard part, right? Yeah. That's the challenge of our job here. So, Nate, how have you been?
I've been okay. You know how it's been going with the whole, U.S. soccer's been keeping me employed, so I'm very, very thankful.
Not that they're employing you, right? Because you want to make that clear.
No,
U.S. Soccer has employed you.
That's very clear.
Well, hell, if they do, they should hire me for their PR firm because I'm killing it right now. They're losing the battle. So.
Yeah, you are getting the word out for the U.S. Soccer Federation in their fight against the U.S. women's team.
Oh yeah, and there's more videos to come. We're about to hit U.S. Soccer hard, very, very hard.
Boy.
But there's some other great things. There's some other great things in the law happening, which is amazing. I'm also going to be doing my unboxing probably tomorrow for the 100K award. So I got that award. Yeah,
yay.
So those are the new things happening.
Nice. Fun things.
Yeah.
Fun
we
things.
have to hate him. We're envious.
I know we have to shake our fists angrily at him. No, just kidding. Obviously, we're super happy for Nate. It couldn't have happened to a better person. So, and also just secretly hoping, like, I hope that's me one day.
Yeah, no, really, you and me both.
Hey, me and Kurt started the same. Me and Kurt started out, and it's just, to be honest with you, it's all luck. It's anybody who tells you it's more than that. It's I don't know what to tell you.
Luck is one part of it. One part of it. But there's also hard work.
A format that's been receptive. So
yeah.
I mean, you found something that really works and clicks. So
yeah,
I'm going to copy your format blatantly.
Well, hey, you should. I would copy it too. But it's.
I already have started copying.
Thanks, law nerd.
Yeah. Congrats, Nate. And also, hi Tina. Hello, and hey Eric also.
Yeah.
Eric here. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow or 2 days from now.
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow.
Nice.
Only 30 days this month.
Eric's tomorrow.
Nice.
Yes. I forgot there's 31 days in the month. Give me a break.
There are. Wait,
No,
I thought tomorrow's October 1st.
Yes, there's not 31
It
days.
is. Okay, what am I saying? Okay, so
Isn't there like a nursery
Timothy,
rhyme for that?
you haven't.
I don't.
Oh,
there is, but I never
nursery
learned
rhyme.
it. April,
I know that there's.
May, and
If you
November or
use
something
your knuckles, right? It's like 31st, 30th, 31st. Like it's like January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. It's like each knuckle is the 31st. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
Oh.
But to answer your question, Timothy Taylor, we have not really talked about anything of substance just yet. So you are right on time. So Linda also says congrats to Nate. There we go.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, and Eric tomorrow confirming for Kurt, and Linda said Linda was basically letting Timothy know. Yep, we are. Nate is going to do his unboxing for his 100K play button. That is super exciting. So, should we get into it, guys? We've got a lot. There's all. I mean, it's every week. There's something super exciting, and Britney has been giving us so much to talk about in recent months. And today is no exception, right? Because yesterday there was the massive hearing that so many people were waiting for months, right? Ever since her testimony in at the hearing back in June, when she was basically saying that she's pretty much been enslaved by this conservatorship. She wants out of it. She's had all of these horrible things happen to her under this conservatorship. And so she just wants out as soon as possible. And she wants to get away from her father as soon as possible. So this hearing has been the one that everyone has been waiting for because multiple petitions were filed. Number one, there was the petition to remove Jamie Spears as the conservator and to replace him with a temporary conservator. And number two was the petition filed by Jamie Spears to terminate the conservatorship. So, and that was the one that we were all kind of baffled by, right? Because it was like kind of a weak argument, and that there was almost like a little bit of an attitude about like, well, if you think that you can be then that you can manage your life on your own, then fine, like be out of this conservatorship.
Yeah.
But yesterday was fireworks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It seemed like it was crazy.
I do have one point of clarification. What is the status of conservatorship for the person at this point?
So the conservator of the person right now is a temporary conservator of the person, which is Jody Montgomery. Okay. So she is still the temporary one, and there's been a lot of talk about making her the permanent conservator of the person, but I think that she is not moving in that direction, and I think that Britney and her lawyers are not moving in the direction of making her permanent, because ultimately they seem to be on the same page that they want the conservatorship to end. So they kind of want to move in the direction of like temporary is perfectly fine because this is supposed to end soon anyway. So now yesterday, as of the hearing yesterday, there were arguments from both sides, from Jamie's lawyer, Vivian, what was her last name? I can't remember her last name. But anyway, she was in the Britney Spears documentary, but she was arguing against Matthew Rosengart, Britney Spears' attorney, ultimately the court decided to effective. Hey Nate, there you are. There's your face. We can see you.
Yeah, you saw my camera blinking like crazy for a second. I'm like, I hope it stays. Stay.
He does exist. So anyway, yesterday the epic climax was he's out. Jamie Spears is gone, effective immediately, out of Britney Spears' life, and it was exactly what Britney's lawyers wanted, and exactly in the way that they wanted it to happen. So this has been an epic win for Team Free Britney, and I mean, I've tried to keep a certain sense of neutrality on this issue, but with a growing suspicion that Jamie Spears was definitely a bad actor. So we can definitely talk about that. Kurt, I know you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I was with you because family law, by very deliberate choice, is not an interest or specialty of mine in any possible respect. I have learned more about family law from this case than I ever did know or ever wanted to know. So my initial reaction was, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about, so I'm just going to listen for a while and try to figure out what's going on. So right. I've been listening and paying attention since basically Britney spoke on court, and been watching the documents fly back ever since, trying to figure out what's going on. So I was pretty neutral for a long time. And then I heard about the audio recording and bugging in the bedroom and between her and the attorney. And Vivian yesterday didn't mention best interest of Britney once. And I was like, okay, between all that and between the filings, which seemed very self-serving, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I'm pretty well on board of Free Britney at this point. So I was very late to make up my mind, but I wanted to give the process the chance to play out. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
Right. Nate, how about you?
To be honest with you, I'm still so confused with this whole case, and and maybe maybe my issue is that I haven't been covering it as closely as I should have. But it's just because number one, it seems like all her complaints against the conservator weren't against her father; they were against the personal conservator, right? The IUD, the not being able to being forced to work and all that stuff. Wouldn't that be all under the purview of the personal conservator? That's not the financial conservator, right?
Well, I think technically yes, but I think that the reality of the situation seems to be, at least from what I've heard and what I've read elsewhere, is that even though technically he was only the conservator of the estate, he kind of had his hands in everything. That's what I've heard. And so a lot of those shots are being called by her father, is my understanding.
Okay. Because then it's like two things. It's all right, just so everybody understands my thinking. Number one, I totally think Britney should be free to do whatever. She's a grown woman. She's got 2 kids. She's making all this money. Let her be free. That's the simple thing about it. But that's my heart. And then I'm talking about my mental state, my thinking as a lawyer. My thing as a lawyer is number one. She wanted to end this thing, fine. But she has 2 conservators. She has one over her person and one over her finances. All of her complaints were about the one over her person. So when that woman said, I want to get the hell out of here, right? I don't want to be conservator anymore. Britney said, no, I want you to be a conservator. So my first thought was like, hold on. Is this the woman that's telling you don't do this, don't have sex, don't have a baby? That's this person, right? That's the one seems like that's the one you want to get. Then when it comes to the father, so the father's like, yo, I don't want to be conservative anymore. And he put in saying he didn't want to be, and now today it was just like, okay, you're not conservative anymore. Let's, you're suspended, put this other one in. So it's just, I understand Britney coming out and saying that she had all these personal problems with the conservatorship. And maybe you're right. Maybe, and I totally agree. It could be the case that the father was telling the other conservator, this is what you do because of the finances. That could all be possible. But I just think it just seems a little bit more messy because the Free Britney movement was about ending the conservatorship. That's not what's going on.
Right.
It's transferring it to somebody else. So maybe I was under the impression that the conservatorship was the bad thing, but it doesn't seem like it was the conservatorship. It was just the person who was running this aspect of the conservatorship was bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I definitely. But I think that, so based on the reporting on the hearing yesterday, because there was. This was a hearing with limited access, right? So people couldn't come in and record the hearing. It wasn't like the Derek Chauvin trial, right, where we could actually watch the live stream of it like all together and comment on it, right? So with this, what I got from the hearing was what I was able to get from Twitter, from people tweeting, like live tweeting during the hearing, the ones that were able to get in. And one of the things that apparently Matthew Rosengart said was that the aim is to actually end the conservatorship, but they wanted to do it in a way that is deliberate and organized and in an organized way, right? So rather than ending it immediately, and there's definitely a very big strategic reason why they didn't want it to end immediately. But one of I guess getting into that, the big strategy there, it seems like, and the reason why Jamie was in such a rush to terminate the conservatorship is he doesn't want to have to hand over all of his paperwork over to the new conservator, because now what they've done is they have set up a temporary conservator who is just going to be handling everything from here presumably until the end. And so Jamie has to hand over all of his paperwork, including all of his accounting, including all of his communications with his attorney. So this is an odd wrinkle, right? Because under normal circumstances, your communications with your lawyer for any legal matter are strictly confidential. Like no one can come in and ask you. I mean, with some limitations, obviously. If you for example, if you were to say, I'm going to kill someone, or I'm going to commit this crime, there are certain things that a lawyer will have to report. But assuming that it's within the scope of your representation, et cetera. Typically speaking, your communications with your lawyer are not to be shared with anyone. However, in this case, Jamie is represented in his capacity as the conservator. So it's almost as if like his lawyers and his benefits that he gets for being the conservator in this case, it's almost like it's a piece of armor that he has to now take off and put on to the next person. And now they get access to all of that information, all of those privileges, all of those benefits. So now they're going to get access to those communications about the recording of her communications with her boyfriend, now fiance, and her kids, and all of this stuff that is going to now come up. And there's potentially some very, very interesting information that will be coming out.
Watch the law firm fight it, though. Watch the law firm fight it and say, we're going to, because they were talking about appealing yesterday, even though they can't. And so when they get the letter, to the law firm says, give me the file, they're going to be like, no. And try to fight it for whatever value it has.
Yeah, but just especially for the audience, so everybody understands, since Jamie Spears is not the client. The client is the conservatorship. Actually, Britney's really the client. The conservatorship is the client. It's like a company. And if the president of the company leaves the company, the lawyers for the company still represent because they're not representing the president of the company. This actually happens all the time. So those communications are still private, because I don't want people to think that those communications between the lawyer and the conservator are not private. They are still private and protected. It's just since there's a new conservator, that new conservator is the one with the privilege, not the old conservator. The privilege attaches to the position.
It would be like a lawyer working for a business, and the leadership of the business changes. The lawyer works for the business. So old CEO goes out, new CEO comes in. The client is still the business, so you still talk to the client. It's just different people now.
Right. And anytime we're talking about a privilege, whether it's attorney-client privilege, doctor-patient privilege, clergy-penitent privilege, you have to ask who is the one that owns the privilege, because there's also like spousal privileges, right? Your communications with your spouse, if you are legally married, are privileged under the law. So you have to ask who is the one that owns it, because it's only the person that owns it that can waive it. So a lawyer can't waive the attorney-client privilege. Only the client can do that. So now that the client has shifted to a new person, that new conservator, who is somebody who has been recommended by Britney Spears attorneys, so may have a friendlier relationship with them, now he can actually waive that privilege and say, this information is public. I'm happy to share this with you. So this is very, very interesting, and it definitely feels like chess.
It's weird because they almost have an adverse relationship between both the conservator and Britney, which they should all have the fiduciary duty to Britney herself, right? The attorney has the fiduciary to Britney, and the conservator, so they should all be aligned. So this kind of animosity between both the conservator and the legal team, it doesn't make sense unless there's some problem with the between the fiduciaries. But I just don't see how that's even possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That's one area that is that's one wrinkle in this area of law that's just a very awkward wrinkle, because of the fact that technically, the conservator or, the trustee of a trust, or, anyone that's acting in the capacity as an agent for someone else, technically they're acting for that person. But when they both have potentially different interests at various points in a legal proceeding, they both need to have their own legal counsel, in which case they have their own separate, attorney-client privilege. So it's a little bit of an awkward wrinkle in this area, but that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have a situation where the conservator has a good relationship with the conserved. So anyway, well, let me get these. We've got a couple of super chats. So from Andy, you all could literally be silent and still provide way more substance than the corporate press. Thank you. That is a low bar, but a compliment nonetheless. And then here's another one. Who is a better role model for men, Jamie Spears or Andrew Cuomo? Kurt, you first.
Andrew Cuomo.
Hey, wow. In this Hobbesian choice, yes.
True. It's a bad choice, yeah.
One thing about this question,
you didn't give us your answer, Lita.
Oh, that's true.
What's that?
You didn't give us your answer.
Oh, God. I mean, a better role model for men. Terrible father versus terrible man towards most women. I don't know. I guess I'd have to say Andrew Cuomo. I mean, because Jamie's you don't want anyone to turn into that kind of a father. You don't want anyone to turn into Andrew Cuomo either. I don't like it. I don't like that question. Andy, damn you. Take your $10 back.
Loyalty to your own family, though, is pretty low. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that is a more important like value to have, I guess, is loyalty towards your family. I guess I'd have to go with that.
Being a dick to strangers, right, is one thing, but being a dick to your own kids or your own spouse is like that's low.
Yeah,
but I do feel like I have to say this. All these are allegations against Jamie. I don't know if any of this stuff is true, even though what's been going on, it looks bad, right? Because I'm going to say, and I know people are going to laugh at me, I was sucked into the U.S. soccer shit, and I believed them, right? I believed them, and it came out that they were wrong. I've been fooled before, so I believe, if right now, just with the information I have, Andrew Cuomo, I think, is not as good. I think Jamie Spears, he's been doing this for 11 years. Would you make mistakes? Possibly. If what is being alleged is what was being said, that's, that would change my mind. But allegations, I just need to know a little bit more before I can really make that call. But I do want to ask you guys this: did you guys hear about the Andrew Cuomo? What's the other one? The Chris Cuomo harassment issue that happened?
Oh, that's right. That's another one that we've got to talk about, I guess. Like he has his own, which is just deliciously ironic, right? Because, I mean, he was supposedly counseling his brother, even though he wasn't supposed to be counseling his brother. And then, of course, he had him on during good times. And then during bad times, he's like, I can't talk about him because he's my brother and there's a conflict. Yeah. There's only a conflict when it's bad, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Well, maybe he was the perfect person to counsel him after all because they really understood.
I mean,
just so everybody knows what the allegations are. So supposedly he was working out or something with a colleague. She says it was non-sexual, but he gives her some type of hug. But allegedly, both his hands ended up on her butt, and it was in a non-sexual way or something like that, right?
It was. You know what it was? It was a former boss. I remember now. It was a former boss at a work party, and he said, "Now that we don't work together anymore, I can do this." And it was right in front of her husband. Right in front of her husband. He saw the whole thing. And then the next morning, he apparently, I saw a copy of the email that he was like, in hindsight, maybe that wasn't a really good thing to do. And there were a lot of ellipses in this, like he was trying to figure out what to say in this email to not damage himself, but at the same time kind of apologize because he recognized that it was a terrible thing to do.
Well, at least he was able to recognize it. So we'll give him some credit, I guess. It's something.
Yeah. Well, it's two things. Number one, her husband has a little bit to answer for because if somebody goes and grabs both my wife's butt cheeks at the same time right in front of me, I think we're going to have, it'll be like Chris Cuomo was in a fight with some dude at a bar for grabbing his wife's butt. That's the headline. The headline isn't like, oh, he sent a pretty nice email apologizing. At this point, apology be damned, right? You know what I'm saying? I can barely grab my wife's butt when I want to, and there's some random grab. It's not really working for me. But it also shows you something too. I think I think it shows you an upbringing of power, of and look, I hate to say this, but when I was younger, you were brought up to be very aggressive toward women. Right, you were taught that women didn't want a sensitive man. They didn't want a man with sensitivity. Right, you wanted a man who was strong, who was this, who was that. Yeah. And I think that played into that role of, be physical, be that type of thing. And I think they both they buy into that. I think both Andrew and Chris buy into that macho mentality, and that's what's leading them down this unfortunate road. But now I think the morals that we're judging them with now, obviously, are the problem. And I'm surprised Chris Cuomo still has a job, with the double hand butt grab. Look at Al Franken. Al Franken, they kicked him out, and he did the same exact thing, right? Al Franken grabbed the woman's butt in front of her husband. Yeah,
it was
he had the hover hands.
Yes, he had his
hover hands,
and it was a photo.
Yeah.
There was no actual touching. Like if that one was actually an actual lawsuit, there actually wouldn't be a case for either assault or for battery, because there's no actual touching for battery, and there was no reasonable apprehension of any touching because she was asleep in the photo. She didn't even know that it had happened.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there were two photos for Al Franken. It was remember there was one where he was at a county fair and he took a picture with someone and his hand was behind her and she said that he grabbed her butt, and that was like the first allegation. And then the second allegation was the reporter when he did that one. So yeah. And it was in front of her. Matter of fact, her husband took the picture of Al Franken. It does seem,
Yeah. So, well,
we got a super chat about it.
Another super chat. Thank you, Andy, for the super chats. This is my brother, by the way. Everyone say hi to my brother.
Andy.
Hi, Andy. In spite of Chris trying to overlook everything his brother did, he grew up to become the butt of the joke. Wop, nice. Wop, wop, wop. My brother's really good with the jokes.
I like the way you put that together.
So are we done with the Britney Spears topic? Are we moving on to other things?
So, I guess that's pretty much it with Britney Spears, because the only other thing is there's another hearing, I guess, set for November 12th for the actual termination of her conservatorship, and apparently the judge said that they can terminate it by stipulation. So this was one of the other things that I was thinking previously about why they wanted to first remove Jamie and then terminate the conservatorship, was because they probably wanted someone that they figured that they could work with to kind of wind down the conservatorship towards the end. And so they most likely, my guess is that they probably will end up just kind of working with him to wind it down before November 12th, and then have a very happy Thanksgiving for Britney.
Yeah.
Not with her father, probably.
No.
But are they keeping the personal?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nate. Go ahead.
Oh.
No. I was asking: are they keeping the personal conservator, or you think they're trying to wind that one down too?
I think the entire conservatorship is probably going to be wound down by November 12th. So yeah, I think that'll all be. But right now she's still the temporary conservator. But my guess is they're probably all going to start working together to wind it all down. So yeah, and I mean, if that's the case, like I said before, like we've said this multiple times, that we, when it comes to the question of whether Jamie Spears is properly the conservator here, and then the question of whether or not she should be in a conservatorship at all, those are two separate questions. And so now we have the answer to whether or not Jamie should be the conservator, and the answer is no, according to the court.
No.
So we can dispense with that question, and now the only question that's left is whether or not she should be in this conservatorship at all. And obviously we don't have information about her medical history, her medical situation, mental health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. But that'll be interesting to see.
I'm looking forward to the transcripts of the hearing. I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to reading those.
Yeah. Oh, and here's
and Emily said she wanted to do a dramatic reenactment. I'm like,
oh, dude, I would totally be down. I would be down. I want to play a part in that.
No, that's what I said. I said I want to play a part in it too. So maybe you can reach out to Emily and see if she's interested in hiring actors. I'll play any part. I'll play Jamie. I'll play Vivian. I'll play anybody because I just think it's hilarious.
Jamie.
That would be awesome. So Manny Fabani asked, what about the documents Jamie has to turn over now? So the documents that he's going to have to turn over are pretty much all of the accountings, all of the information that's relevant to the conservatorship, including his, like we said before, including his communications with his attorneys. So everything, like Kurt said, they're probably going to have a fight over it from Vivian and all of them. They're gonna try to fight as much as they can to redact or whatever, to try to protect certain pieces of information, but most likely the court's gonna say hand it all over. So super big victory for Team Britney, and we'll see. We'll see what happens next.
Here's a question I never considered before. If they're technically the lawyer for the conservator, assume that they also are representing Jamie Spears personally. Is that a conflict of interest? And do they have to get a waiver from? Does he have to give a waiver from himself? I mean, how's that work?
Well, he has to step away if he feels that there's a conflict of interest for himself. Yeah. So,
well,
which
in the past, I'm like, because I'm trying to think about potential avenues. Like, okay, some of these documents remain privileged because we're also representing Jamie in his personal capacity. I'm like, okay, how does that work if they're potentially in conflict? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, although if they're trying to say that that they're representing him in his personal capacity as opposed to his capacity as the conservator,
he would have to pay for it. He would have to pay for it.
He would have to pay for that out of pocket. So yeah, that would be on his own, not out of the conservatorship. But at the same time, in order for that to work, the substance of the communications would have to be not related to the conservatorship, because if it is, then it's in his capacity as a conservator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he'll have any, because as long as the lawyer is being paid for the conservatorship, even if he tells them, "Hey, I killed 3 people" or whatever, that lawyer has no obligation, unless he's trying to seek legal advice for his own personal thing. I don't know. I don't think he has a leg to stand on. The conservatorship goes with the conservator. I mean, the legal team goes with the conservatorship.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Yep. Super, super excited to see how that turns out. So, you guys want to talk about Gabby Petito and Dog the Bounty Hunter?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, the big thing was first the arrest warrant. I know a lot of people.
Yeah, you had a video on that.
Yeah, but it was a quickie. But the one thing with the arrest warrant was that the arrest warrant was not for the murder. I think a lot of people thinking that the arrest warrant is for the murder and they're looking for him for murder. That may be true in substance, but that's not true in fact. The fact is they're looking for Brian for using someone else's debit card. That's essentially what the charge was. And from my understanding is that the arrest warrant is for something very specific. They believe that whenever they found her body, you can determine when the person died, or at least the time frame of when the person died. It seems like they believe that she had died before he used the credit card. Now, that it's an important distinction because obviously he knew her PIN number and he had access to her cards previously. That was his fiance. So it would be hard to make a case to say that he wasn't authorized to use it while she was alive. But if she's not alive and then he uses it, then you can make a reasonable case to say, well, he couldn't have been authorized to use it at that time because she wasn't alive. So that's what this warrant is.
Impossible to give authorization.
Yeah. So that seems to be. Now also, the arrest warrant, it had the wrong charge on it, but I forgot to say this in my video. It doesn't matter. And I don't even know why they even do arrest warrants in this situation. So the feds, they love arrest warrants for whatever reason. I don't know why they go get arrest warrants in New York. You can get an arrest warrant, but 99.9% of the time you do not get an arrest warrant, right? Because to make an arrest, you need probable cause. And generally, if you have a federal indictment or a state indictment, that's probable cause. So you can make what's known as a warrantless arrest. You don't need the physical warrant. You can make a warrantless arrest because your probable cause of being indicted. You're indicted for felonies. We can just make a warrantless arrest. And then when you go to court, the judge will be like, what's the probable cause? Here's the indictment. The feds like to do it early. I don't know why. They just do it, but whatever. So the fact that the warrant had a mistake on it, the wrong charge, it doesn't matter because you could just do it warrantlessly. So that's the legal aspect of what's going on with the warrant for arresting him. And now Dog the Bounty Hunter is involved. So we'll see what happens. So and last thing about Dog the Bounty Hunter, generally bounty hunters don't get involved until after you jump bail. So this is pre-bail jump. So there's no money in it for Dog.
When you're talking about a bounty hunter, there has to be a bounty to hunt.
Yes.
So the bounty is not the person; it's the money.
The money, yeah.
Yeah. So just so people, well, he's obviously, I think Dog's doing this for fame, but so everybody understands how it works with bounty hunters and bail. If he was arrested and then they set bail at $100,000 and he jumps bail, he doesn't show up, that $100,000 becomes the bounty for your arrest to bring you back. So the court doesn't really keep that. They're like, here's the bounty, $100,000. And then if Dog the bounty hunter goes and picks you up and brings you back, then his company gets your bounty, the $100,000, and then you go to court to do this. So that's why. So, but right now he's not been arrested. He doesn't have a bounty. So even if Dog was to arrest him, it's just like now. Also, there's a second piece to it too. I think a lot of people are missing too. Dog the bounty hunter is not a federal official. He's not a law enforcement officer. He's nothing. He's nothing.
Something I
so he's actually
was just thinking about. Yeah.
Yes. So
go ahead.
So he's making a citizen's arrest. So Dog the bounty hunter is going to be making a citizen's arrest, but that's dangerous of itself, because if this was a misdemeanor, Dog the bounty hunter would not be able to do this. He would not be able to make it, because you can't make citizens arrest generally with misdemeanors unless you were there and specifically observed the misdemeanor happen. But for felonies, it's a little different, because for felonies, most states, if not all, allows citizens to arrest for felonies that weren't that didn't occur in their presence. So if somebody's wanted for murder, you see the murderer, you can arrest that person. So that's the authority Dog is going to be using to effectuate this arrest whenever he does it. So
yeah, because otherwise that's just straight up kidnapping.
That would be kidnapping. That would be kidnapping.
That is what that is, and that would be a very interesting fact pattern to break down.
But as long as he has that arrest, as long as you have that indictment, he's good though. As long as the indictment saves Dog the
felony indictment,
kidnapping charge. Felony indictment.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, so what I saw was that he said that his reason for doing it, and it could be a mix of things. It could be fame, really. It could be a mix of things. But he said that the reason was because his daughter died in a car accident when she was Gabby Petito's age, and so he feels very like emotionally driven on this case, because she really reminds him of his own daughter that he lost, and so he feels the pain of her family or whatever. So that could be it. That could be just what he's saying it is, for the clicks. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, he's one thing is for sure is he's not able to actually get any money for doing it. So at least not directly in exchange, right? So
that's true. I want to also say something too. Your cat is like Spider-Man behind you. The cat is climbed up on the thing. I'm like looking at it like, oh, I'm like, what's that? Your cat is killing it back there.
That is Holmes. I mean, he's always, the thing is, because we have these two shelves right, close enough to each other. If we didn't have this middle shelf, he wouldn't be able to jump immediately up there. So I just basically inevitably created like a series of stairs for him to leap up to. It's only a matter of time before the kitten is big enough that she can start doing the same thing.
Following the other one around. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but otherwise, Indy's over here too. She's just on the floor for some reason instead of in the chair. So I'm sure at some point she'll get bored enough and decide that she wants to be in the chair again. So yeah, but that's Holmes. He's relaxing way up by the ceiling now. So
what do you guys think about the controversy around the Gabby Petito case? The quote missing white woman syndrome that was brought up on MSNBC. How do you guys feel about that?
It inevitably it was going to happen just because of who she is and what she looks like. But I think that any kind of outrage over someone missing is not misplaced. We can definitely talk about how there are plenty of other people that go missing that don't get the same sort of, attention, and the fact that there should be attention on people that are missing. There should be, people should be alarmed about somebody that's been missing for weeks or months or whatever. And, to be able to use the internet, use other influencers who can put pieces together to, like, the fact that she was found so quickly was due in very large part to that one other van life family that was just editing footage, and they happened to see the van, and then she was found nearby. Like, if they hadn't known about that case, if they hadn't heard about it, they would have just been like, oh, this is crap footage, and we're not going to use this anyway, and be done with it and ignore it, and then it's months or years or decades until she's found. So, I mean, we can definitely talk about how there are a lot of people that should have their cases, be talked about so that we can try to find them and bring them to justice and all that kind of stuff too. But I think that, there are more factors than just the fact that she's, a white woman. She's young, she's pretty, she's an influencer, she has a following, and a following that is already inherently on the internet. So that's the kind of thing that is going to send something viral anyway, because it's like the pieces are already there. So it seems inevitable to me that something like that would go viral.
It's also partly like, why does the Britney Spears conservatorship get everyone's attention when there's so many other conservatorships and conservatorship abuse? I mean, it's been documented. So why Britney Spears as opposed to literally anyone else? Is it because she's a white woman, or is it because she's famous, she's notable, has a huge following? That's why people care about it. So
right.
Yeah, well, Kurt, I think you have to turn your gain up because you are coming in a little lower.
Okay. I always worry about it. I always worry about it peaking.
I can't agree more, because when I first heard it on MSNBC, I was like, wow, they've really found a way to turn a tragedy into a cancel culture, a cancel culture, race baiting phenomenon, right? You got to throw the identity politics up. Now, I do agree. I don't think Gabby Petito's case had anything to do with her skin color or her being a woman at all. I think it's all based on social media. When I first saw the case and I heard about it, I was like, oh my God. And I went to her channel and looked at the videos. I felt a connection because of just us being in the same business, right? Oh, this is a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Then I can actually see. Then when I saw the video of her and her boyfriend doing her little van life thing, it actually even made me more sympathetic, because I'm like, oh, look at this. They're doing the same. They're trying to do what we all do, right? And at no point in time, even looking at the case, did I think this poor white woman. I was just like, this poor influencer, this poor woman, right. And obviously the tragedy. The same thing with a lot of these other cases, like you're talking about Britney Spears and all this other stuff. It's not, I think the news media sometimes feels that they have to kind of always remind us that America is somehow inherently wrong, or there's some type of implicit bias in all types of news coverage, and that's just not true, and this case I don't think is any type of example of missing white woman syndrome, because I think if she was black and if the situation was on, and I honestly feel this way, the situation was totally reversed and she was black and it was a black boyfriend and it was the same thing where they were doing van life and stuff like that, I think this would still be that type of story, because the story isn't about a white missing woman. The story was like this influencer who was filming their lives in this van went missing. That's the story I heard. So I don't know. I think it's just another example of media malpractice. They want us to see racism when I don't think there's any that exists here.
The media complaining about it is so notable because they're the ones who would be in the position to fix the problem. Rather than talk about this being a case of missing white women syndrome, here's an idea. Why don't you talk about a different case to bring attention to that?
Yeah.
Why don't you just solve the problem?
It's the yes and. They didn't have to cover it. Yeah, right. First of all, they didn't have to cover Gabby Petito. They didn't have to. And then second of all, they can do the yes and. Yes, Gabby Petito story. And here's another story. Here's another person that's missing.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it. Let's solve it.
You can do both.
That would have been.
Let's talk about missing white syndrome. And here's another person we're not talking about. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. So here's a question.
That's the worst, stupidest thing I ever heard. It's like, why is the media only covering missing white women? The media asks. I don't know, media. Why are you doing that? Seems like you got yourself right there to ask. I don't know.
Why do the things that we talk about make us all seem so racist? I don't know, media. Why don't you psychoanalyze yourself? Very good point. So here's a question from Matt Herbert. Okay, with this case and others, do you believe social media makes it difficult for someone to have a fair trial? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I mean, we talked about that with Derek Chauvin. We talked about that with Rittenhouse, right? Wasn't he dealing with some sort of like jury issues or venue issues related to that?
Yeah, but I do want to take a note of exception. This is not a uniquely social media problem. In the long ago, before the social media, it was newspapers, and newspapers would get their circulation up by talking about big cases. So this is not a novel problem.
True. That's a very fair point. But social media obviously makes the information dissemination faster, though.
That's true.
Yeah, because you had to read the newspaper.
We no longer have to have the 14-year-old boy on the street corner saying extra, read all about it. So there's that.
Yeah, and it's right there in your hand, so you don't even have to go down to the street corner to buy it. It's delivered right to you with a beautiful little red notification button.
And the fact of the matter is that the media gives you so much misinformation and so by the time you get there, like with Kyle Rittenhouse, if you watch the media coverage, you would believe that he's some white supremacist who was just out there looking to gun down, minorities in Kenosha, and that just happens not to be the case, right? It's just like, no, that's not anything close to what happened. But
the fact that you are going against the media means that you are racist. Nate.
yeah, racist, sexist, the whole thing. But the thing is that I do want to make it very clear. The media gets things right, though, sometimes, right? They do get things right sometimes. But I think when they get things wrong, Breonna Taylor, when they get things wrong, instead of saying we got it wrong, they just double down on it or make it seem like and they never said it. And that's what's going on now with U.S. Soccer. That's what's going on with Gabby Petito. That's what's going on with all these cases. So
yeah. So no, I agree. This is an interesting point from Ron Buchko. If Petito is missing white woman syndrome because we ignore similar minority cases, is George Floyd dead black man syndrome and ignoring white men killed by cops?
That's nice question, though. I like the question, though.
Point, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is what story is going to sell, right? And at a time like this, a story like George Floyd sells. A story like Gabby Petito sells. And that's, at the end of the day, what the media is. They're in the business of selling stories, right? So,
they
that's a very good point.
But I honestly think, I don't think the analogy is adapt, because I think George Floyd is an example of, if George Floyd was white, we would not hear about George Floyd. Right. I don't think there would be George Floyd would not be a story if George Floyd was white. I think the story is the fact that he's black. But I think in Gabby Petito's case, I don't think her being Hispanic, I don't think her being white, I don't think any of that had to do with the actual story. I think she just happened to be white when this happened to. Where I think George Floyd was black, and him being black is the thing that drove the narrative there.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Nate, that the fact that her life and her story, like she was in the business of inviting people into her almost daily life as she was traveling across the country. And that's the thing that if you look at behavioral economists or psychologists, when they talk about strategies for, let's say getting people to donate money to a cause after a tragedy has struck. If you give them statistics and you talk about those people way over there, 1 million people way over there have suffered from this hurricane, people are not going to donate money. They're just not going to, because they're not emotionally connected. But as soon as you have dogs that are crying in kennels, and you have what's her face singing, about death and these poor dogs suffering, then you're like, oh my
Sarah
God,
McLachlan.
I need to take Sarah McLachlan. Thank you.
Arms of angels away from me. Yeah,
exactly. Classic. Now I know that this live stream has won because Kurt has once again sung.
I like to sing. It makes me happy.
It's good. Yeah. It's good. I love it.
The singing may not be good, but the principle of singing is good.
Everyone who is watching right now, if you haven't liked this live stream yet, like it just to like Uncivil Laws singing, please. So, but the thing is, like, once you have that up close and personal contact, then people are like, I want to help. I want to give my money. I want to, to do things for, to eliminate the suffering because I feel the suffering. So, when you have an influencer that people are able to get to know on a regular basis, and she's talking about, her experiences, her journey that she's on. And then as after she's disappeared, when there's this information about the actual, the not traffic stop, but when they were pulled over by the cops and they had the interview with her on the body cam footage, you can hear her tearfully talking about what had happened. It's just, there's a lot there to get emotionally invested in a story like this.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's just like with jury trials. When you have video, it's amazing because you actually make the finders of fact witnesses to the event. That's why video and audio. And that's what was happening with the Gabby Petito case. We as people who are watching it became witnesses. We were witness to her life before she disappeared. We were witnesses to them being stopped by the cops, and we were able to see that. So we became witnesses to her life, to the event, and that's what made us all. It gave us that connection, and that's what. And it's interesting because that's what her channel and that's what they were trying to do. And in doing so, we became invested into not only her life, but also the murder. And again, this would happen with any one of us. I think any one of us who are on social media, if something was like that was to happen to us, like when Kurt, when you had the thing that happened with you, and then there was a misunderstanding, everybody jumped on it. It was everywhere. Oh my god! And you're not Gabby Petito, you know what I'm saying? But you'd be missing white guy. So, but it's because we have people who care about us. We have people who care about us, and if something would happen to you like right now. Yeah. It would blow up. Like think about it. If we were just to disappear all of a sudden, people would be like, "Oh my God, what happened? What happened?" It would become a big story because we've invited all these people, and all these people now know us. So it's sad that
it's nice knowing if I'm murdered someday that Alita and Nate and all the other people will be able to get some wonderful content out of it.
I'll get a lot of messages.
Oh no! Talking about, and then Nate and I are live streaming talking about Kurt's case.
That's right. Missing white man syndrome.
Exactly.
If you were black.
Oh man. Yeah. So, but that's a really, I mean, and Brian Laundrie is still missing. Like, how about that? How about the fact that it took 3 days for his parents to be like, oh yeah, he's a person of interest, and we know that the whole country is talking about this case, and we just haven't seen him in a few days. How about that?
It was well. I think they did the smart thing. They wanted to hook their son up, and they wanted to give him some time to run. So you get him. How do you get him 3 days? Because he's got to get ahead of everybody for 3 days. You give him cash. You take him off the grid. Here's a whole bunch of cash. Go off the grid and do what you got to do. And he's already survivalist. He knows how to survive on the land. I think it's
gets
easy.
A lawyer right away.
And it's easier.
You get a lawyer right away. All that stuff. Yeah. Get a lawyer right away.
And it's easier. And it's easier for unfortunately, it is easier for a younger white male to disappear in the middle of the country than it is for a black person because there just happen to be more white people around. So
That's true.
But when you're only a person of interest, there's nothing illegal about this, by the way. You're not aiding a fugitive because you're only a person of interest. So you're not aiding a fugitive. So why not? Give him some money, hire a lawyer, tell the lawyer that we're not going to talk to him, help him get away from it. Yeah, why not?
Sure. I mean, unless he actually, I was going to say, unless he actually confessed to his parents, right? If he what if he told his parents and he was like, actually, this is exactly what happened. And they were like, all right, get out of here.
Well, they would be compelled to testify about that in a court, but they don't necessarily have to volunteer that information in the first instance if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you tell me you killed someone, I don't necessarily have to go telling people if I don't want to.
Yeah, because you're not a fugitive. You haven't been charged with anything. I can give you money. I'm not aiding and abetting you, and If you tell me I'm going to kill somebody and then I start giving you money,
yes, that would raise ethics issues. Yes,
true.
Yeah.
So ASO says Brian Laundrie is likely either dead or in another country with no extradition policy. I think that's quite likely at this point, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if all that's necessary, because why not just simply, if you hire him a lawyer and simply say, we're not going to answer any questions to the police, period. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. A lot of people were trying to say why.
Sorry.
No, I know a lot of people were saying why wasn't he arrested? Why wasn't he arrested, or at least surveilled right after he came home and she wasn't with them? And just like a lot of people don't understand, police just can't, arrest you for nothing, right? They didn't know she was dead. There was nothing. Being a person of interest isn't a crime. It's just like, we think he may have.
Yeah, even if the police somehow noticed that and knew it for a fact, what does that tell them? That she didn't come back? Well, maybe she's somewhere else. She stopped somewhere along the way, or it doesn't give you any information.
I mean, it does. It does make his situation look very suspicious. Obviously. I mean,
yeah, of course.
How many people can you find that think, I think Brian Laundrie probably didn't do it? It's probably hard to find people that actually think that at this point, because of his the things that he's done since then, right?
Look, he may very well have done it, but I'm going to give him the same legal advice I give everyone else. Don't talk to the police.
Right.
Hire a lawyer. What you want to say is, I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer. Just those things. Yep. Only those things. Shut up. And, don't talk to the police.
Yeah.
So, I give that advice to everybody.
Yeah. Up until the point that he left and disappeared, I was thinking he actually was probably making some smart moves by saying, not talking to the cops, not talking to the press. I'm living in my parents' house and I'm never leaving. And that's a very smart thing to do, because, regardless of whether you're guilty or innocent, no one is entitled to get information from you if you're just a person of interest. So
the right against self-incrimination.
All the press. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I don't know how wise that was for him to then leave and disappear. I mean, I guess we'll find out if and when he's ultimately found, right? What the actual story was.
Or not. I mean, it makes logical sense. It makes logical sense to me for him to, in addition to all those, also flee, because he knows, and the parents know that, they'd be hounded and the press would be outside the door. And so, why not also, in addition to, I'm not going to cooperate with the police, if you can, why not also go somewhere else? Because, to prevent all that. Makes logical sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I especially, don't get me wrong. I understand why people are mad at the family. But I do want to say, on the other end of this, if that was my kid and they came to me and said, Dad, I got a problem, and at that point in time, you haven't been charged, you're just a person of interest, I'm probably going to do something similar to the parents do. Here's some money, here's something. Go ahead, take your time, go on vacation, and come back when your head is clear. It doesn't, because I think a lot of people believe that if they're in that situation and their children have done something like that, they would be very like, oh my God, we're going to do the most ethical thing. But that's
BS. BS, most I say.
Most people, think about it. It's their kid. You're going to help your kid out. And that's why you don't come down on the parents too hard, because I think any parent out there whose child's in trouble, there may be some parent who will say, yeah, I'm going to give up my kid to the feds. That's not me. But somebody, and I don't think most people, and I don't think anybody on this call, parents would do that to you, right? Your parents,
right.
It's just the way it goes. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would give money to say go on a vacation, because I would say, okay, at the end of the day, if something does happen and you ultimately are brought in for some kind of questionings, how is that going to look? How is that going to be received? And is that going to bring more trouble to you on the back end?
Yeah, but I would say here's some cash, because number one, we're gonna have media all over here in the house, right? So let's stay away from the media, stay away from all this. You don't want them,
Yeah.
So go stay in a hotel. So I can see that conversation happening. I can see the conversation, but I also can see the point, because I do understand. he should be held accountable, right? And he's going to be arrested. And this arrest warrant is just really for that, just to get him in the system so they can keep an eye on him. That's why they ran and got this arrest warrant. But I think at the end of the day, I think people have to, I think the realistic piece of this is that parents are going to help their children. And for people if people didn't think that his parents were going to help him out, that's just, I think people are just being unrealistic and trying to hold up to some standard that's not, really, I just couldn't do it as a parent. I can't talk to anybody. As a parent myself, I couldn't turn my kid in. It would be hard for me to do. And if my kid does do something and I'm on stream and somebody asks me, I'll tell you, I'm not turning them. It's just not, I'm not snitching on my children. I'm not snitching on my parents either, but I'm not snitching on my kids.
Yeah, I don't normally go for the no snitch philosophy because it doesn't really make sense. If people are doing bad things in the community, you should tell. But when it comes to your own family, it's like, maybe not, harder. maybe less with that. Yeah.
No, I mean,
that's also within reason. If they're a serial killer, then maybe we have something.
That's fair point. Fair point. Well noted.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is one of those situations that you really can't say with total certainty what you would do in that situation until you actually find yourself in that situation. God forbid, right? Like no one wants to find themselves in that place, but to say with total certainty what you would do or wouldn't do is I think difficult.
If my kid comes to me, my first thing is give me $1. Congratulations, you're now retained. Bye. I'm not a reporter, so this entire conversation is privileged.
Let's get this in writing, shall we?
Yeah, let's get this in writing rapidly. Yeah, did your son talk to you? Yes, he retained me, so go away.
The first thing I can say, if Brian Laundrie is my son, he's coming in and I'm asking, I say, where's Gabby at? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. It's a different conversation if I'm his parent, right? It's a different conversation, because he's not been arrested. He's not telling me. It'll be working differently. I don't know if I'd help him get running all that, but it's. I don't think it's as easy as just say turn this guy in. If he was some stranger, yeah, but it's I think it's a different. And I'm saying that as a parent, but I do think he needs to be caught, and he needs to. We need to find out what happened.
Yeah.
One thing I'm also.
I have no objection to. I have no objection to the police going to try to find him. I have no objection to them trying to arrest him, especially if they have a valid arrest warrant. That's part of the valid process too. So that's perfectly fine.
Think people are asking too much.
All I'm saying is if he's out there and he needs some free legal advice, here you go. All you need to say is, I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer. Just those two things. Only those two things. Don't complicate it. Don't add anything to it. I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent. And that will be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, somebody put the Unabomber's brother disagrees. Yeah, he was the Unabomber. He's bombing people. That's a different story, right? That's a different story. Here, I don't know if he killed any. He just showed up out the blue. It's like, oh, all right, here's some cash. Blah, blah, blah. He hasn't been charged with anything. The Unabomber, it's a little different. You're killing mass people.
But Whitey Bulger's brother agreed. He refused to turn in his brother. Whitey Bulger, by the way, was an organized crime boss and committed 19 murders, among other things. But his brother refused to turn in.
But he was also an FBI informant too, right?
Well, things get complicated.
Yeah. By the way, Secret Squirrel says that none of us are allowed to go missing, like Gabby Petito. So back from what we were saying earlier, thank you. I appreciate that. And I have no intent to go missing anytime soon. And Manny Fabani says Brian Laundrie's life is tumbling like clothes in a dryer.
I gotta run, guys. I'm actually late. I gotta go.
Shit. Okay.
I have to run too. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Okay. All right. See you guys. I'll stick on for just a little bit longer.
Oh no. Yeah. No, I can stay for like another 2-3 minutes, but I have to.
Oh, okay.
I got other videos. I'm cutting a video, but I gotta go pick up something right now. So it's just.
Okay. The last. Sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say the last thing I was going to talk about was the Marine officer who did you hear about this? Who he kind of went viral because he posted a video on Facebook talking about his opinions on the Afghanistan withdrawal, and so he was relieved of his command, and he's 3 years away from retirement, which is like that's the part that is really crazy about this is that he made a calculated decision, and he said it in the video that he's like, I'm 3 years away from retirement. I would be getting, retirement, a pension for the rest of my life and medical benefits and all this kind of stuff. I'm kind of throwing this away right now to say what I feel like I need to say. And he basically said that there needs to be accountability by the senior officers, generals that were in charge of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And then as a result, he said that he expected this. He expected to be relieved of his command. Ultimately, he decided to actually resign his commission, which means he's not going to get a retirement. He's not going to get, any of those benefits or anything because people were kind of calling him out on it, saying that he didn't have any honor because of the way that he was calling the military out. But now what's interesting is he's got like 4 videos that he's made on social media, and he's been pulled in for a court martial, and he's been instructed not to post anymore to social media. He's been given a gag order, and he's violated the gag order. And so now he's being held in pretrial confinement ahead of his court martial, which is interesting to me because, this seems like a very strange situation for anyone to be held pre-trial. Usually that's reserved for a case where somebody's maybe going to be a flight risk or maybe a harm to themselves or to other people. But
if he's violating court orders, like if they give him a gag and he keeps violating the gag order, then that would also give you grounds to, to like, okay, well, since you can't violate the gag order, then
I guess so. Have you ever seen a situation like that where somebody had a gag order and they were, because usually, at least, from what I've seen, when there's a gag order, someone's not necessarily going to be imprisoned, but they'll be given civil penalties. This is obviously under the UCMJ
military law, so it might be different. I don't know. It's like, are they like 2 things? Number one, all right. So when I was a uniformed officer, they used to always tell us, because we used to have mass protests, and when we go out to a protest, the cameras are there. What do you think? How do you feel? That type of thing. And you used to always say, your comment is always no comment. As long as you're in uniform, as long as you're employed, as long as you're representing this, the city or this organization, you can have an opinion, right? But your opinion,
right.
You can't have an opinion in uniform. You can't, your right. personal time. But
right.
So
because you represent the government when you have the uniform on.
Yes. So I do understand this person being brave enough to tell their story, to say, I believe this is wrong, and taking that stand. I sympathize with that. But the reason why you have these rules in place is because I don't think it's his right for him to speak that way and continue to have the privilege of being in that position. You know what I'm saying? Because we all know, and I'm assuming, any person who's been in uniform understands this particular role. And this happened under Obama. This happened under Trump when he had his guy resign. And obviously this is happening under Biden. But I do feel bad about the whole 3-year thing. But, it's just like, this is not like, if this was whistleblowing in terms of they're doing this illegally, that's a different story.
Right.
But this is kind of like I disagree with the way they're doing this. Then you're wearing a uniform. You're in a position of power. You're in a position of authority. I think it's a messy situation, but it's just not as overt as I think it is. I don't know
I think the fact that he's being punished for giving his opinion and giving it so vocally, in that sort of capacity, I guess. I think that is not really being disputed, because he himself said, being relieved of command, that's what I would have done if someone, lower, beneath me had done the same thing. That is the proper call. That's what they're supposed to do. And so he basically recognized that was what he was effectively doing to himself, was bringing all of that on him. The part that's most interesting to me, though, is the fact that he's being incarcerated ahead of his court martial. And I know his parents have gone out onto Fox News. I don't know if they've gone out anywhere else, but they've talked about how alarmed they are about the fact that he's been thrown in the brig for this. Now, obviously, you know, I'm not a JAG. You're not a JAG. You know, I've never, I considered at one point, maybe going JAG. I applied and everything, and decided to ultimately. Oh yeah, that's right. Which branch did you apply?
I didn't apply. I was going to do first it was Air Force, and then I was going to do Army. Then I was like, no, I'm not going to do it, because then I was like, because I wanted to be an ADA, so I was like, you know. But JAG was, you know, they pay for school, so I was like, and plus, they were paying for school, but then I had already, you know, my ride was more or less free anyway, so it's kind of, you know, the benefits didn't help. So I was like, all right, you know what, I'll do. But JAG, I would say this though, anybody who can get in, it's a really, really great program, but it's really, really they don't take everybody too. They're very selective on who they take. So
yeah, I know sometimes I regret not doing it after I got in, because it would have been really interesting work, and there are great benefits to it, like getting, you know, a certain portion of student loans paid off and all that kind of stuff. Which is, you know, these days super helpful, but I do have some people that I know, some friends that I have that are JAGs, and I asked them about this, like, is this different under the UCMJ? And the answer that I've gotten is no. Like, this is actually, the criminal procedure is actually the same under the UCMJ as it is for a normal criminal case. So for all intents and purposes, we could. Right, exactly. So it's a very odd wrinkle, and I'm wondering if maybe there's some more information that hasn't been made public, that hasn't been reported on, that, you know, that would indicate that he's some sort of a risk to himself or to other people. I don't know.
But it could also be the whole the risk to the military's character, because let's not forget, this is a high-ranking military official, you know, showing that type of discontent for the higher ups. It could be seen that, you know, this, you know, his ongoing, you know, speaking out could be damaging the military in some way. But again, I don't know the you know, military justice, their piece of it. But the piece about because I'm not sure, did they give him an order not to speak? You know, was the gag order? Did he violate the gag order? Because I can see violation of the gag order, and him saying, you know, we're going to put this in. Are you going to? He said, yes, I am going to violate it again. I can see some type of confinement just for the contempt of court. Again, if they even have contempt of court in the military, because I just don't know. You know.
Yeah, no, my understanding is they did put a gag order on him, and he violated the gag order. So I mean, I guess then again, like, even in civil court, if you are, you know, if you're slapped with penalties and you don't pay those penalties, ultimately, you know, if you let it go long enough, you can be tossed in jail, right?
Yeah. No.
I've never seen it.
It depends. If let's say if a court says restrains you from doing something, gag order, right? It's restraining you from speaking about a certain topic. If you speak about that topic, there are a couple of, you know, you got contempt, right? Then you have the fines, and you have this, and sometimes with contempt, you can have confinement based on the contempt. You know, 30 days in jail because you violated the court order. So again, but I just don't know what is the reason for his confinement. I'm assuming it's just not pretrial confinement, because it just doesn't make sense, because pretrial confinement for bail is just, so everybody understands, bail is just to make sure you come to every subsequent court appearance. So you can't use bail as a punishment, right? If the person is going to come, then you can. So that's why I don't know if this is a bail related issue. I don't know if it's different for the military justice, but right now, you know, the only thing I can think of is it has to do something with the gag order. If it's not, then I'm just totally at a loss.
That's what I was thinking as well. So interesting. But here's a question though. He did a video claiming he was filing charges against ACO, and those charges will be followed up. Will those charges be followed up on, or will they get dropped by default? I don't know. My understanding is so he can't file charges against a superior officer, is my understanding, but he can prefer charges. Basically, he can make claims against a superior officer, but it's up to higher ups to determine whether or not they're going to move forward with that. So I think it's uncertain as to whether or not any of those will actually move forward, because from what I've read, from reporting on this situation. I guess his attorney he shared some text messages that his attorney sent him, which is never recommended, right? We were totally talking for a long time about attorney-client privilege. When you have an attorney that is texting you information, generally speaking, don't share that information. But I guess he shared on Facebook that his attorney texted him and said that it's not a good idea for him to move forward with preferring certain charges against higher-ups. And it may actually have a very detrimental. Right, exactly. Yeah. So
it's a sad. I honestly hope they let this guy retire. He's got 17 years for one mistake. Yeah. But I do think he has to start thinking about his family and long-term career. Just like if you're only 3 years away from retirement, it's a very dumb move, because I think every officer in any type of public profession understands when you speak, you're not speaking as a private individual, you're speaking as an officer of that particular department, and it's the Department of Defense. So hopefully, but I also think she shouldn't be. This is starting to be ridiculous. The Biden administration, you messed up Afghanistan, let it go. But this guy has to meet them halfway. You can't. I understand he wants to talk, but what is that worth? But listen, Alita, I definitely have to go now because it's 1:15, so I have to make this move. But listen, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining.
I really appreciate it.
yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming by, and until next week then, I guess, or whenever you can make the live stream.
Hopefully next week. My fingers are crossed.
Hopefully.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We'll see you. Yeah, we'll see you later.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
So anyway, well, that about does it for me anyway. That's pretty much everything that I had wanted to talk about. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys found this interesting and informative. And yeah, if you haven't already liked the video, be sure to like the video. Of course, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. That way you can see when we've got our weekly live stream about this time every single week. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.